So what we're going to be making is a 5-inch cylinder or a cup. What's the difference between a cup and a mug? Handle, okay? This one's actually a little too small. I'm going to get one that's a little bigger. I tell you to start with a pound. That's what it takes me to get about a 6.5 inch cylinder, but you can start with a little more if you want a bigger cup. Every time I throw, even if it's already in a ball, I just kind of mash it up a little bit more because it distributes the moisture. Bless you. Bless you. Okay, then I'm going to smack it down. Now say I smack it down, it's not in the middle. A lot of my students, after they're done centering, they're like, how come this side's thicker than this side? I'll show you why. If I go straight down the middle on this wheel, notice that this side is thicker than this side. It's because it's off-centered. So I want to push it in the middle, or in as middle as I can. I always take it, just lightly spin it, and just kind of pack it into place. So it does most of the centering for me before I even start. You can, if you'd like, seal the bottom, but you don't have to do that. The way I seal the bottom, is I get it spinning pretty fast when I center. This wheel is pretty slow. Kick it. But the way I seal it is I use the bottom of my hand here. I don't push, but I push down with the base of my thumb right here. And just by pushing a little bit on the bottom of my hand there, it'll seal it to the wheel. Okay? A little bit more advanced technique. So again, some of you already know how to throw, some of you are still working on it, that's fine. But I'm going to show you some techniques. I'll make sure I throw everybody a bone so you can learn some other things. Some of you, even if you haven't learned how to throw, I'll show you some more advanced techniques, and maybe that's the answer to your problems. You never know. It'll solve world hunger. So elbow in your hip. I'm going to push now on the side because I've got it sealed now. It's not sealed to the wheel. I can't push on the side. It's just going to push straight off. So I get the side to balance out a little bit. And I push my thumb. I don't push the tip of my thumb, just the base of my thumb straight down. Again, elbow into my hip. When I say elbow in the hip, some of you go like this and you just do this and you're still way back here. It's using your body weight to move forward into it. So I'll show you real quick. It's using my body weight. Watch how my body comes forward. Okay? If your body weight isn't enough for this 1 pound of clay, worry about your eating habits. It means you're under 1 pound in weight. Also, something to help you out, especially if you get more advanced or maybe you just don't have the strength for it. Elbow in my hip, same way, but I'm going to use 2 hands. And I'm going to cone up. Like that. Okay? Then I'm going to cone down. Some of you, when you cone down, you go like this, and you push your hand down on the sand or the grog, and you get clay underneath your hand. And you're like, ow, it hurts. Don't let the clay get underneath. If you need to, clean the wheel. Clean your hand. Slides like no other, okay? Okay, I'm going to center one more time just for the sake of example. So I push, elbow in my hip, push the side, coning up, then I cone down. So it's a kind of a ebb and flow or going back and forth between getting the side and the top stabilized, but most of it happens from the top as you push it down. The sides, kind of. All right, so now I've got it centered. Now I want to open it up. I'm going to take my thumb right in the middle. I've literally seen some of you do this. I don't know how you will ever accomplish that. If you learn to master that, good for you. But it will take you a while, I promise you. Elbows to your body. My thumb here is the one that keeps control. It's stable. This hand, I use like 3 or 4 fingers, and I push straight down the middle. Notice my elbow's locked to my ribs. I go straight down. I don't use much water here because I want to be able to see where I'm going. Okay? And I want to be nice and stable. If I put water in there, I can't see how deep I'm going, and I might go too deep. Now I'm going to measure the bottom. I'm going to hold my needle tool. I'm going to poke straight through down to the wheel, slide my finger down to the bottom of my clay, slide it out, and it's a little more than 1/4 inch. That's about what I like. If you get too little, like this much, you're probably going to cut the bottom off, and this project, it does require trimming. You might cut a hole in the bottom, you might go through it. So you want to make sure it's at least 1/4 inch. Later on, you can get to a 1/2 inch, so that way you can really get some nice feet on there. That's kind of how I can tell the difference between a more advanced spotter and a less advanced spotter, is they have a deeper foot on the trimming, okay? So now I've opened down, now I need to open out. So last time I oversimplified throwing and I said center, open, pull up, right? Just to get you on the basic steps. So centering was side and top, break it down a little bit more. Opening, still the same hand placement, is gonna be down and then out. So I want to make sure that this time when I open out, that I don't push down. My floor is already measured. I want it to be nice and level all the way across. So I'm going to add a little bit of water, because I don't need to see the bottom. I can just feel the bottom now. I arch my thumb like this, kind of a 90-degree angle. Not like this. A lot of people open with a rounded thumb, and that'll work really well for a bowl, but not for a mug, okay, or a cup, or anything going vertical. So I've got my thumb in there. I've got my elbows to my body, and I'm going to hook it. And I'm just going to pull towards my belly button. Don't pull too fast, but don't pull too slow. And I want to keep it nice and level on the floor. So I'm going to pull towards myself. Okay? So you'll see a little bump in there. If you've got a little unlevel area, bring out your sponge. This is actually a really good habit to learn anyways. I do this on every single one of my pots. I compress the bottom. So I'm just pressing a light pressure all the way across until it's nice and level. If you want to be fancy with it, you can do a little swirl too. Like that.
Yeah.
I'll clean that off if I don't like it, which I'm going to do it again later. Okay. Now it's nice and centered. This is ideal for pulling up. If you've had a tough time pulling up, it's usually because it's off-centered. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. Let's say this was a little off-centered. Like that. That would show itself, one, and it would jerk me around as I try to pull it up. Two, even if I pulled up perfectly, it would be off-centered at the top. So you'd have to trim it off. And when you're starting with a certain amount of clay, you don't want to cut off. You want to use as much or utilize as much clay as possible. Especially if you start with 1 pound, you cut some off, you may not make that 5 inches in height. So I'm going to recenter, still using my left hand. You could hook your thumb inside, but I just use my little finger on the inside and I get it to hold still. And I do it for about 30-40 seconds. I'm really firm with it. Get it to hold still. Okay, now I'm ready to pull up. This is where we get into a little bit more of an advanced technique, and some of you, it may help you if you've never been able to pull before. It's kind of a double pull. We call it the crab claw in the ceramics community. But I'm literally going to pull or squeeze between my middle finger and thumb. Then I'm going to do another pull with the pointer finger and my sponge. So instead of just here and here, I'm going to squeeze here also. And it's going to help me get a lot more clay up all at once. So I'm going to squeeze. Okay, like so. So I squeeze here with my middle, pushing here, and my thumb. So I'm basically grabbing the bottom and lifting, but this is also stabilizing because you'll feel it get a little bit wobbly, and you just kind of squeeze with the sponge and stabilize everything. So I'm going to get a little bit of the water out of the inside. Also keep in mind when you're lifting, you don't want to dig your hand down inside when you squeeze because you want that floor to be nice and level. So a little bit more water. The water mostly on the inside. The outside I have my sponge, so I don't need to worry about it. So now I'm going to compress all this clay. So from here down, from that little line down, is where you can really be aggressive with the clay. After that, you want to lighten up and just kind of carry your bulge. And I'll show you what I mean as I do this pull. You're going to create a bulge at the bottom. Create your bulge by squeezing and compressing, and then slowly carry that up. And the way I keep that bulge is my middle finger or my finger on the inside stays just higher than the outside. Okay, notice I stop before I get all the way to the top. The reason for that is because I don't want to thin my lip. If you do thin your lip too much, you can kind of hold the walls and press down on it, thicken it a little bit. Notice also I go into a volcano shape. I don't want my shape to go out like a V shape, because that's more for like a bowl, and if you go out too far, you can't come back from it. So I want to make sure I go into either straight up or a volcano shape. I'm going to do another pull. This time I'm really going to push at the bottom. Thank you, Bill. Okay, I'm gonna leave that top just to show you real quick. I could continue my pull and make it go in. Say you wanted it to go in and you have it, you stopped already. You can take 3 points of pressure, 1, 2, and then my back 3. I could collar that in a little bit. Like so. It'll make it taller, but it will thicken your walls a little bit because you're going in. Okay? So now I want to measure, make sure I made my 5-inch cylinder. Right now I'm at exactly 6, which is going to shrink. So I want to make sure I have that. My width needs to be at least 3 inches, which we're about almost 3 3/4. So we've got the height, the width. Now I want to clean it up. If my lip was a little wobbly, because this one you are being graded on a level lip, you would take your needle tool. Again, I see a lot of jousters. Come from the side, let the clay kind of slide by your tool. You trace first, then cut through. I'm not going to cut this one because it's level enough. I'll cut it. But I'm going to cut off very little, just to make sure I level it. So I trace first. Not trace, now I slowly cut through it. Okay. Well, it didn't come off so smooth, but there we go. Now I'm going to get the water out of the inside, so I'm going to wring out my sponge from all the slip. If you can't reach, just stab your sponge. Like so. Reach it in there. So now I'm going to clean up my lip just by lightly pressing my sponge on there. Now it's time for creativity. You could do your creativity off to the side. Actually, I skipped a step. Make sure you trim the sides. A lot of you skip this step in the beginning, and it's crucial to you. Steven, can you see? This is critical. Make sure you stand up, please, so you can see. Use your modeling tool. Okay, it's always the ones that are sitting there not paying attention that later struggle and whine. Modeling tool. Right here on the side, I'm going to use the blade side. I brace my arm against the leg or the tray, anything I can use to hold still. And I push straight down the side until I hear that sound, then I know it's hit the wheel. Use my needle tool, trim all the way underneath till I see the needle tool shine through. Poke that off, take that off. Okay, leave that on the deck to clean up for later. So now it's time for creativity. Let me point out why I do that. One, when you try to cut your pot off the wheel, it tends to suction to it. So having like extra legs, you just don't want that. You want to break as much surface area as you can, or surface tension, excuse me. Also, when you trim this one, which is a part of your score, it's so much easier to trim like this. Trust me. Some of you have already trimmed, and it takes, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes to trim a pot. You do it when it's not trimmed, it will be a pain in your butt, I promise you. Sometimes 2-3 days worth of trimming. So we're going to get this going, then I'm going to add some creativity. Last period I did the hand grenade, which I'll show you guys in a bit. But this period I'm going to do the swirl. So I'm going to push this out a little bit. Some of you will go, oh, I can't get my hand in there anymore. Just shove your hand in there. It will open. Okay. So I'm going to belly this out just a little bit for shape because my top's open more than the rest. But I'm going to push against the wall. You can use your modeling tool too if you can't reach in there. Just make sure it's the dull side. You're going to push, make a little belly just to add more volume to it. What I mean by volume is not my pot's getting loud and let artist's soul speak, but as in volume, as in how much liquid it can hold. Okay, just pushing it. I go very slowly. Okay, and then I hold still for a second. Once I get to where I want to be, I'm going to collar in that top part just a little bit. So again, just holding it here, squeezing in a little bit. And I like thick lips on my pots, thinner walls, but I like thick lips. So I'm going to thicken that just a little bit. Then I want to round it off. Make it so it's not sharp. So one, it's not sharp against your lips. Two, it's not going to break the glaze, meaning it's not going to separate or pull away from that spot. So now it's time for creativity. I could cut this off, call it a day, and do some carving, do some relief carvings, any of the techniques you've learned along the way. But I'm going to show you what's called a swirl. This tends to be a fan favorite of my students. So I'm gonna take this clean tool. Actually, you know what? I'll use the one, my old gift card, and I hole punch the side. Super expensive tool. Cost me $0 in borrowing a hole punch from another classroom. But I'm gonna use this to make a little texture on the side. And I'm gonna use my inside hand to push out against it. Okay, there's a little texture. This will add a nice little effect once I do the swirl. Clean the lip again. When I do the swirl, I may mess up the lip a little bit. That's okay. Some of you may be lacking the confidence on your first cut, but that's why I give you so much time sometimes. You can experiment with things. After you get the basic techniques down, you can really try some interesting things. And trust me, it's endless in here. Sometimes I learn things from you guys. You guys will bring me videos from Instagram or whatever, and I learn new things all the time. Push that back out because I kind of pushed it in. So now it's time for the swirl. This is the part where I need to be somewhat careful. I don't want to push it too far out, but I don't want to push it too far or not enough out. So I'm going to let it spin very slowly. Start at the very bottom, and I slowly bring my modeling tool up. And I don't go to the very top on the swirl. But notice how the lip's all wonky now, right?
Yep.
I don't want that. Let me make sure I did it far enough. See, it didn't do it far enough, like at the very bottom here. I can just push that out with my hand. Now I really threw it off. So now, I'm just gonna straighten that out. I can just hook my finger if I really wanted to right there, straighten it out. But I wanna make it nice and straight, nice and smooth. So now the lip's nice and smooth, it'll be easy to trim. Smooth it out just a little bit more. Again, I'm not pushing down, I'm just wrapping the sponge around the lip. So you'll see as it spins, that texture adds a nice little effect to it, right? Like a little visual display. So that's the gist of the cup. You can do any number of things. I'll show you a few examples afterwards of things I've used as tools. Now getting it off, a little bit of water. Cut through, dragging that water here. Some of you put water in random places. I always put it in the front because that's the side I'm going to slide it off on. Slide that water under. Then I check it. Put 2 fingers on each side. Slides right off. I'm going to get the bat wet. Why do we get the bat wet?
So you slide it on.
So it doesn't stick, because it'll slide halfway on and it'll just stick like crazy. But be careful you don't push too fast. So there's the cup. There you go.